Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of whatever this is. I think I'm going to make this a yearly thing where basically I go through all the books I've read this year by order of month and what I thought about them in general. Now, these by no means are going to be in-depth reviews. They're just going to be a simple, I like this, I didn't like that, and then I'll rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And yeah, without further ado, let's start with January. So January...
Do you know what month it is?
Fuck you, it's January!
I read the OG Red Rising trilogy. I have a YouTube video on this. You can check it out on the title card or in the link down below of a Red Rising review for the OG ones. And I gotta say, I started out the year strong. There's only really been one book that has met my expectations as much as this one, these three books, and I could go through them individually real quick. I would say the first one is about a 7 out of 10. It's kind of got that Hunger Games setup, but it's not directly connected to Hunger Games. There's something obviously very different about this, and it's a little bit darker. It seems like a YA book just by looking at it, but trust me, it is not. And what I love about the Red Rising is each installment, so second one, Golden Sun, third one, Morning Star, is each of them gets a little darker. And it's first person, which normally I'm not a huge fan of. I can find it kind of corny in a lot of ways. Pierce Brown is just a master at the first person point of view. And this I had to actually take a break because I knew there's already two other books. One of them I'll be covering at the very end. And I didn't want to jump right into it because I was so satisfied with how this trilogy ended. I didn't know if I wanted to jump in yet because I usually get burnt out. This is from video games, anything in general. If I play more than 3 games or read more than 3 books at a time, I get just burnt out and I want to move on to something else, aka the Wheel of Time. So overall, I would say the first book is about a 7. I would say the second book is an 8, and Morning Star 8 or 9, and the whole series in general, while the first book is the weakest, honestly, you need it for the setup, and it is great. So overall, I give the series a 9 out of 10. It's fantastic. If you want to start reading, especially in sci-fi, this is the new age of sci-fi. So I highly, highly recommend it.
Because I'm you. No, I'm me. I'm me, he says.
All right, second off, I actually don't have books for these. I'm also counting audiobooks because they are also a time investment. An average audiobook sometimes takes up to 24 hours. Books, depending on your reading speed, are less or more. So I count them as an experience. I count them as reading, absolutely. It's a person reading a book to you, so I think it should count. And I started the First Law trilogy late last year, or late 2020, and then I finished the trilogy this year with the 2 audiobooks, Before They Hanged and Last Argument of Kings. When I heard this was one of the best grimdark, I never expected to love it as this much because the internet likes to overhype things. But I still say one thing about Logan Nine Fingers. I have these phrases in my head and these unforgettable characters. This is actually a perfect point for grimdark because it's not just blood, guts. It's actually dark scenarios and very, very gray or bad characters. There's not really a good side in the First Law trilogy. I have yet to read other Joe Abercrombie stuff. However, I don't think I'll ever read a Joe Abercrombie book because the audiobook is fantastic. Whoever narrates it, here's his name on the screen. Whoever narrates the First Law and all of Joe Abercrombie's books, I'm an absolute fan, and I will only digest his stuff through that. I may buy his books as just to fill up a shelf or something like that because the covers are nice and all that. But honestly, audiobook is the way to go because the guy who narrates it, his Glockner voice is fantastic, and overall, just fantastic audiobooks. So moving on from that, so I would give the trilogy overall, again, another 9. This is I started out really strong within the year. I'm sorry. Also, in February, I read the third Wheel of Time book Dragon Reborn. This is probably my least favorite Wheel of Time book. There's barely any Rand in it, and I understood why Robert Jordan wanted to do this, because he wanted to say, hey, the Wheel of Time is not just Rand's story, it's all these other people's stories, and I get that, but at the same time, you learned more about the Aes Sedai and stuff, but it just kind of dragged for me, honestly. And the future books that I'll be getting into, I had a lot more positive view on, but the Dragon Reborn, really, I could see why someone would drop it after the third book, but that's just my opinion. I know Wheel of Time fans think the early books are god tier, and I will agree, Otherworld is pretty good, but yeah, the third one just kind of dragged for me.
I have a question for God. Why?
Anyway, so on to the next month. So we have March, which is only one book. I think there's only 1 or 2 months where I didn't read anything because either I was playing video games or something. But we have Prince of Thorns, the first book in the Broken Empire trilogy. I gotta say, this is probably one of the grittiest, grimdark books I've ever read. It's basically, Mark Lawrence wanted to be like, what if Joffrey from Game of Thrones was the main character? That's main character Jorah. He's just a bastard, and he's like, it's pretty much just following the bad guy in this really cool, I don't want to spoil too much, but this world where everything's not as it seems, and the world building was really cool. Again, first person. I really like the first entry. We'll get into the other entries later, but this one sold me on reading the rest, and it's only barely 300 pages. This is great for a grimdark. Okay, there's no happy endings.
April Fools, jerk.
April, I had a pretty busy month. I read Percy Jackson. I thought I was going to read all of them this year, but then I read Sea of Monsters, and I decided not to do that. Oh god, this is green. This is gonna look awful on the green screen, so I'm just gonna put that away. It's in the background. Yeah, solid. Rick Roydan is great. He's one of the best YA authors we've ever seen in the book community and stuff like that, and Percy Jackson does not disappoint. It's just a fun adventure through and through, and obviously the man loves his Greek mythology, and you can just tell through the pages. So that's the first Percy Jackson. I definitely like it a lot more. Then I read Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. This was really interesting because I just started reading Vinland Saga this year. Maybe I'll do a manga video soon of all the manga I've read. So I wanted to get more into Viking stuff, so I listened to Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology, which is narrated by the man himself, and it is fantastic. It kind of gets rid of that old textbook definitions of things and just kind of makes it more of a narrative and stuff. And I did not know how really progressive the character Loki was. The man doesn't really have a gender. He fucks a horse or lets a horse fuck him. I don't even remember which way it went. Yeah, overall, it was just an enjoyable audiobook, only barely 10 hours, I think. So, it's a really great retelling of all those mythologies. And I hope that he would do Greek mythology, too, because I think he obviously shows a lot of love toward that. Jade City is a 10 out of 10 for me. This book, again, this is going to look shitty on the green screen. This book is fan-fucking-tastic. This is my favorite book that I've read this year. I've been reading fantasy for a while, and it's normally medieval, or if it's not medieval, it's wizards in the modern place or something like that. So I wanted to look more. There's only a couple, I think, on this list, but different cultures books, because I'm so used to the medieval knights, wizards, stuff like that. Jade City is like The Godfather mixed with Yakuza. It is fan-fucking-tastic. All the characters are lovable. There are unexpected turns that, normally I'm pretty conscious about the plot a lot of the times. I pretty much think I'm a kind of I know where it's going, but I enjoy their journey kind of guy. I did not expect anything in this book, and next year I will be reading the second book and the third book. Again, when I read something really good, I'm really scared to pick up the sequel because I'm just afraid it won't live up to the hype. But from what I've been hearing, Jade War, I believe the second one is just as good as Jade City. So please, please, please pick this up. Again, Godfather meets Yakuza with magic thrown into it. It is like barely 500 pages. It is totally, totally worth your time. I cannot recommend this book enough. Like Red Rising, I've recommended to shit, but like this one, if any books, read this, please. It is, you will not regret it. So now I've read the 4th Wheel of Time book, and right off the bat, I'm going to rate this an 8. This is the favorite Wheel of Time book out of all the Wheel of Time fans. This is my second reread of all the books. I like this one because it's got a lot of Perrin, and Perrin's one of my favorite characters. They tend to drag a little bit, and I felt like the middle chunk, it was kind of dragging a little bit. Toward the end, every Wheel of Time book toward the end, even if it's a complete schlock of a book, which we'll get to Crown of Swords, the endings are always great, and Shadow Rising has a great ending. It really gets into the Aiel, which I really, really like, because it's obviously based on Middle Eastern stuff, and obviously, if you've read Dune, they're pretty much the Fremen. This is a very enjoyable book. Now, these are the books that I kind of got into, like, doing the audiobook and then reading, because that's the only way I could get through this at a fast pace. That's what I do with a lot of longer books, or books I'm struggling to, like, just read. I'm just not focusing. They may be great stories, but I'm just not focusing. There's one example that's coming up pretty soon. Yeah, so I was able to get through this, and it's still a great book. It's an 8 out of 10, but I feel like, actually, which we'll get into, I'll just say it now, Fires of Heaven I actually liked a lot more. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend this to someone just starting the Wheel of Time, because you need to start at the beginning. 14 books, baby. Well, 15, technically, because of prequel. But yeah, so that's Shadow Rising. I don't know if I pissed off a lot of Wheel of Time fans, but what can you do? Because it's like the seminal work. All right, so that's it for April. 4 books in April, goddamn.
Jones barbecue and foot massage. Jones barbecue and foot massage.
May was Sea of Monsters, which made me not want to read any more Percy Jackson. I just, this reeks kid to me. And yes, but Jack, it's a YA. You could still enjoy YA. We'll get into a book where that's the case. Where YA can still be really, really fun and entertaining. So Sea of Monsters, you know, it's YA, but you know, it's just this lacks a lot of substance, and it's a lot of odd humor that it didn't really jive with me. Yeah, that kind of deteriorated me from Percy Jackson. Maybe I'll pick it up next year. It's not a priority, but you know, that's my review of Sea of Monsters. 5 out of 10. Go fuck yourself. And then I read something that was really good. Black Leopard, Red Wolf. Now, I've heard a lot of complaints about this book and a lot of praises for this book. And this is a mature book. If you are soft bones, if you have a soft skin, is that it? But if you are sensitive, this is not really the book to pick up, because there's a lot of violence and a lot of sexual assault. So if you're not comfortable with that, I would highly recommend not to pick this up. But if you're a type of reader that can read those things and you're fine with it, it's not gonna antagonize you or anyway. Basically, this book is a giant trigger warning, basically. But it is the first book in the Dark Star trilogy, written by Marlon James, and it is really well written. Okay, it's Tolkien's. It's not Game of Thrones. It's Tolkien, but told through like an African setting. So it's like Lord of the Rings, but in an African setting, and very, very mature. You can tell that this author loves Tolkien, and this is like his huge geek book. And he wrote 7 Killings, I think the name of the book is. I have not read it, but that is also a very acclaimed book, and he is a great writer. However, this was one of the books that I said that I also had to finish on audiobook, because it is kind of hard to read. It's very good. The prose are awesome, but if you're not paying attention, you will miss out on a lot of details necessary for the story. And the way it's written is very heavy African dialect, so for some readers it may be hard. This is a read that you must pay attention to everything too, and that could be intimidating. Luckily, again, the audiobook is fan-fucking-tastic. I keep forgetting the audiobook people, but here's his name. He is fantastic. He gives every character a distinct voice, and I would actually say do the audiobook. And if you want to read the book as well, that's fine too. Again, this was one of mine, like, I wanted to drift into more other cultures with my fantasy, and this is a great one for that. This is for veteran readers, however. I would not recommend this to a newbie to fantasy. Overall, I would give it an 8, just because it feels a little incomplete, but thankfully this is a trilogy, so we'll get a more complete version of the story. This trilogy is actually the same events, but told from different points of view. So the second one, which I'm really excited about, that's coming out soon, will be told from a different character's point of view in the same story. So I'm excited to see that. Maybe upon rereads, I will like this book a lot more, but I would say a strong 8 is still a great score for it. And that's Black Leopard, Red Wolf. Then
Nothing.
in June, I read not a goddamn thing, except for manga and stuff, but this isn't a manga thing. Alright, so July, 3 books. I read Scythe. And again, going back to YA can be good, Scythe is very good. The concept is awesome. Told from the first person point of view, I think 2 perspectives if I'm not mistaken, but it is told really well and the concept is great. This is an awesome dystopian future. Basically, what if death was capitalized? Basically, I don't remember the exact details, but let's just call them Reapers, I guess, because I can't remember anything else. There's a cure for everything. Everyone can live all the time, but people have to die to control the population or whatever. So they send Reapers out to randomly select people and to just kill them, basically. So when your time is your time, then you kill that person. And it's basically a capitalization on death. This is great. My only real complaint is I would have loved to see this mature take. This feels very restricted as YA. However, it does get the job done. I would have liked to seen this as a mature outlook. This could have been a great grim dark book. However, there is a trilogy. I don't know if I'll get to the book. Maybe I'll get to the other books in a year or 2, but it's not really pressing me right now. However, book 1 is pretty strong, and it's a great for if you like dystopian futures, if you like Hunger Games and stuff. This is a great book to enter in from. So that is Scythe. Fires of Heaven. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. I actually really like this book. There are some plot inconveniences here and there, but Rand's journey in this, the conclusion is awesome. Nynaeve is great in that. Every character gets a moment to shine. There's a lot of big events in this book. A lot of great map moments. A lot of the time, first read-throughs, people are like, oh, this is where it starts to kind of patter off. I think this is the strongest one I've read this year, honestly. I like it more than The Shadow Rising. That's a very unpopular opinion in the Wheel of Time community, but yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. I read the majority of it. Only had to do audiobooks. I had them, basically, and I was at work, so I decided to put one on, but if I wasn't listening to the audiobook, I was just devouring this book. It is really, really good. One of my favorite Wheel of Time books. Not that Shadow Rising isn't great as well, but this is just one of my personal favorites. It's S tier for me. So, yeah, I'm not going to go too in depth with Wheel of Time because people might not be interested in that stuff. Let's continue on. The second book in the Broken Empire trilogy, King of Thorns. I gave this a 6 as well. 6 all around the board. Well, just 2 6s and 1 10. I kind of struggled through this book quite a bit, actually. Ed, I didn't mind it in the first book, but I really don't like narratives that force you to continue reading. By that, I mean there's 2 sections within this book. There's the main timeline with 18-year-old Jorg, and then 5 years earlier. And this also continues on to the third book, Emperor of Thorns. And I kind of don't like it's kind of like with Last of Us, right? You're playing as Ellie for 10 hours. Then all of a sudden you're playing as Abby, and you're like, I just want to know what happens to Ellie. That's essentially this book right here. It's such a weird narrative structure that this 400-page novel felt like a 900-page novel to me. However, I do still like where Jorg's character went. It's just really the structure really didn't go anywhere with me, and this is definitely a bridge book to the third one, and it feels a lot like that instead of its own self-contained story. So that's why I'm a little harsh on it. However, it's still a good read. If you really, really loved the first book, then I highly recommend you finish up the trilogy. And this is not a bad sequel book. It's just I don't like a lot of the narrative decisions. Okay, then we have, what month are we on?
I play in a band. That's fun.
I was in a band.
August? Nothing.
Wake me up when September ends.
And that September was Lord of Chaos. I think this is the only book I read this month. Yes, it is. Lord of Chaos. This is where the schlag starts. This is where I start blending books in together. Not a huge fan of this. I like the relationship between Rand and the Aiel chick. I can't remember her name. There's so many names in Wheel of Time. Leave me alone. Please just leave me alone. But it's the Aiel lady that's sent to Cardam. It's good. I like it. It's decent. But after the high that was Fires of Heaven, this one felt kind of like a step down for me, honestly, out of the Wheel of Time. And that's what a lot of Wheel of Time fans kind of say. I liked it. It's a Wheel of Time book, so I mean, all the Wheel of Time books are great. But this one, you definitely feel it's not the schlag yet, but it's definitely coming.
Well, excuse me, princess.
And then we have in October, I didn't read any actual books. I read, in preparation for a video that's never coming out, the Legend of Zelda books. I'm not going to get the third one because that's just a bunch of artwork, and I don't much care for that. I could just look up JPEGs and right-click and save them, and it's not an NFT. Fuck you. But, yeah, so we have the Hyrule Historian and the Encyclopedia. If you're a huge Zelda fan like myself, and I've played about 3 Zelda games this year I got around to, I was on a Zelda kick. These are the books to pick up. They explain the chronology. This one goes into depth with every single item in the Legend of Zelda universe, besides Breath of the Wild, because this came out before Breath of the Wild. These are the books to pick up if you want to learn the stories and everything like that. These are to pick them up. You know, you should if you're a huge Zelda fan. That's basically all I have to say. I don't really feel like giving these a rating because they're not really narrative focused. But Nintendo essentially took a series that really didn't have a connecting story and actually connected it in a really interesting way with the timelines and everything. So, yeah, if you love your Zelda lore, these books are for you. All right, so what is up next?
The spice. He knows about the spice.
So we have for November 2 books. We have book 4 of the Dune Saga by Frank Herbert. God Emperor Dune. I will be honest. Quentin Reviews says this is his favorite Dune book. I read it because it was really entertaining. I don't want to spoil the Dune franchise for you, but let's just say one of the main characters gets a certain transformation that makes it very hard to take this book seriously. A lot to love and a lot to laugh, and it's great. I hope they come on, Devil. You have to adapt this, please. It would just, if not, just for the comedy of it. I get it, right? The philosophy and everything in these books are great. That's a standout, but a lot of the characters are dry, and you know, Dune continues to have that kind of shtick. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know, like a 6 or 7. It's really enjoyable. It's really funny just imagining stuff that happens in this book. It's still enjoyable. I still like it. I'm gonna finish up the other 2 Dune books, I swear. But for now, God Emperor Dune. Pretty good shit. Alright, then we have Emperor Thorns. Again, another 6. Pretty much the same complaints as the second book. I don't really have too much to say. I will say one of the characters is foreshadowed to shit where it's obvious who that character is going to turn out to be. And that was a little annoying. However, this one didn't feel as long as the second one, even though it is actually longer. And I like Jorg's conclusion, and I'm glad the only thing we're getting from this universe is like short story books that focus on the other characters. I'm glad things were wrapped up this way. You know, I'll give this like a 7 actually, because I really enjoyed how this wrapped up. Mark Lawrence, really, you could tell he loved this character and loved the fan base around it. So yeah, I would give this a solid 7 for the last book. Pretty good conclusion.
Okay, I'm almost there. I think the biggest surprises are behind me. Dude, I warned you. I said I was going to do that if you did that again.
Alrighty, then we have A Crown of Thorns. Oh boy, really awesome conclusion. I really like this conclusion. It's some really great Matt and Nynaeve stuff in this, but everything else, this just felt like a lot. This is like, if we want to compare it turns to anime, this is the like where the filler starts in the Wheel of Time. The next 3 or 4 books just are constant filler. I'm a constant arguer that Wheel of Time could have been less books. I get it. People love this universe, how big it is and stuff, but like with stuff like this, and especially Path of Daggers, which I will get into in my next year roundabout with reading and stuff, I could get why people dropped off. That being said, it's still a Wheel of Time book. The pros are great. Everything's great. Rob Jordan is a fucking genius, but this is where the schlock starts, and it's a definite sign of that. I will say I will be making a video about what I will be reading for next year, all the books I've planned to read, the essential books that I will absolutely complete, and Wheel of Time is definitely one of them. I want to finish the Wheel of Time. One of these books is a reading in progress, but I feel I'm able to judge it as I will probably finish it by the end of this video, or by the end of this month. It's only the 20th. I only have like 200 more pages, so I'm gonna finish it, and I feel like I can judge it. Although, let me know if you don't think so in the comment section below. I won't be able to see your dislikes, so... so... This isn't the one, by the way. But I am starting to read the Witcher series. I read The Last Witch, I believe it was last year. But I never continued on with the Witcher series. So, actually, starting next year, this is, along with Wheel of Time, I am going to finish by the end of next year, the Witcher series. So I reread The Last Wish. I really like this book. I feel like this is a great introduction to The Witcher through these short stories. And I like short stories. If you don't like short stories, you might struggle through this. And there's another short story collection after this one. I believe it's The Sword of Destiny. But this one is basically focuses more on Geralt. And all his adventures are really great, and a lot of them are adapted in the Netflix ones, or in the Netflix television series. I keep banging the table, which is gonna fuck up the audio. Overall, it's a solid book, great world building. It's like the world is fantastic, and Geralt as a character is such a deconstruction of the ranger or the monster hunter type that it's a really, really enjoyable read. And as a translated book, because I believe this guy is Swedish, I believe. I'm not sure. I think Swedish. And sometimes some translated work, if you know anything about anime or manga or light novels, sometimes the dialogue can be a little cringeworthy or something here and there. But like, actually, this is translated very, very well. Yeah, and it's just a great introduction to the series. I'm very excited to see where else it goes. Everyone's gearing up for Witcher Season 2, so a lot of people are going to be reading these books. So hopefully I'll finish the series by the end of the year. In fact, I almost guarantee that I will. And overall I give this like an 8. It's pretty solid. Again, it's a short story book, which is why, obviously some stories are going to drag a lot of the time. So there's going to be some misses, but there's a lot more hits in this. And my last book that I will be finishing this year is Iron Gold. This is really good. I am a big Red Rising fan, obviously. This is the first book in a brand new trilogy, and this trilogy will be the last of the Red Rising, I believe. And so far, it's great. This takes the Last Jedi risks, but they're actually worth it because where the character left off in the last trilogy, the main character Darrow, I believe this is how he would escalate things. It's really good. It's a different narrative structure where we're following different point of views, whereas in the original trilogy it was just Darrow. Whereas this one, it's multiple perspectives, but all of them are pretty enjoyable with the exception of like one. But besides that, I mean, I am really enjoying my read so far. I'm nearly done with it, and I can't wait to see that's another one. Dark Ages is the second book in this new trilogy, and I will definitely finish that one by the end of next year. I do not know the third book. I don't believe has a release date, title, cover, or anything, so I will be caught up hopefully by next year, and then hopefully he comes out with that new book soon. Yeah, so this, again, really great. Obviously, read the original trilogy before you start with the sequel trilogy. I feel like I shouldn't even need to mention that, but yeah. So overall, 23. Oh, I rate that like an 8. 23 books in total I have read / listened to this year. I hope I convinced you to read some of these for yourself. I didn't go too in depth, but if you want me to go in depth with some of these books, make sure to comment below which ones you will want me to go into story beat detail and character detail and stuff like that. I will be posting by next year, early next year, January, what I will be reading. So a list of books I will absolutely be reading, and books if I have time to read, I will read. I find myself always like wishy-washy on what I'm reading. Like, I always go with the flow. This is the first time I'm actually planning out what I will be reading within the year. And my plan is to read 1 extra book per year. So hopefully I will have 24 books under my belt instead of 23. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe at the Sinister Sheep channel. Also, check out my collaborative channel, Black Hudson Productions, where I have a podcast there, the We Didn't Ask for This podcast, so make sure to check that out. Also, we have a couple of skits on there, and we have a anime show called Anime That Rocks. That's with Peter, where we talk about anime and stuff like that. And We Didn't Ask for This, which is with Mark Heath, and that's a comedy podcast. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. If you guys really like these book reviews and stuff like that, please make sure to comment and share it down below. This channel is like, is it about video games? Is it about books? It's pretty much about everything nerdy. So, you know, this channel can literally be, I mean, I'm wearing an Ava shirt, for God's sake. So, you know, whatever. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to tune in next time. Also, I want to announce that I will be doing, I forget what the YouTuber's name is, but I'll list them over here. I think I'm going to kind of be, pretty much copying his style, but like, movies that I watched for the year. You know, I feel like I've kind of felt I only watch a couple movies every year that I'm really excited about, so I want to keep like a vlog. This channel is going to be a vlog channel, but for entertainment, pretty much. So yeah, make sure to check that out whenever it comes out. So that will start in January, hopefully. And yeah, please make sure to subscribe to the Black Hudson channel. That's me and Marquise' baby, so please subscribe to that. Anyways, that's a long conclusion. Thank you guys so much, and have a good night. Bye.